So my view of why that ad worked, Kamala is for they, them, Donald Trump is for you, is that it was about priorities, that people didn't believe that our party was singularly focused on their economic well-being, they're getting good jobs, they're getting healthcare, they're getting education, and they thought we were being distracted by things that affect a small percent of the population. Look, my view is I believe everyone should be treated with dignity and have the freedom to be who they are. But I'm not going to come and be judgmental of people who may disagree with me. But I'm going to stand, in my view, for in this country, we aren't cruel. We treat everyone with respect. And if someone wants to identify as the gender they are, then how is that hurting you, or how is that hurting anyone else?
I do want to focus a little bit on the gender stuff and the race stuff, because I think if there's anything that drove this Trump wave, I think it largely were those two things, probably the gender thing more than anything else. I don't think this was really an election about trade or even economics or anything else.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. I think that the culture part of this, I think that this insane idea that girls can be boys and boys can be girls, and then the obsession with race, and I do want to get into your exchange with JD as it relates to race. But what's your take on where the Democrats are at as it pertains to gender, which seems to me to be one of these things that it's so insane that in 2025 we have to even discuss.
So my view of why that ad worked, Kamala is for they, them, Donald Trump is for you, is that it was about priorities, that people didn't believe that our party was singularly focused on their economic well-being, they're getting good jobs, they're getting healthcare, they're getting education, and they thought we were being distracted by things that affect a small percent of the population. Look, my view is I believe everyone should be treated with dignity and have the freedom to be who they are, but I'm not going to come and be judgmental of people who may disagree with me, but I'm going to stand, in my view, for in this country, we aren't cruel. We treat everyone with respect. And if someone wants to identify as the gender they are, then how is that hurting you, or how is that hurting anyone else? Let's focus on what it's going to take to beat China and build good jobs and have healthcare. And my view is that's something that we can agree to disagree on some of these issues respectfully and focus on what's going to matter to most Americans.
So I think I'm with you on all of that, but then it begs the question, do you believe that boys can become girls?
I believe that that people have a biological sex at birth, but I think that there are people who believe that they are misidentified and I choose to identify with a gender, and that's who they think they need to be to fulfill their happiness. And in our country, our Constitution says everyone has the right to pursue happiness, and if that's what they believe, why shouldn't they have the freedom to do that? And we're a kind country, a decent country. Let's not be cruel to people who have that belief. If you don't have that belief for your family, you can articulate that for yourself and your family.
Yeah. So I'm actually with you on that. And to me, if you're 18 and you're a guy and you want to put on a dress and call yourself a different name, as long as you treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect. So I'm with you on that. But you do believe that there are two biological genders and that they're just making a choice to identify with the other one. I'm trying to clean this up for you a little bit in that.
Well, I believe that I believe that you're born.
You're not actually changing your gender.
Well, I believe that you're born, with either an X, usually, but not most times, with an XY chromosome or an XX chromosome. You're born. There's a biological sex. That's what comes on your birth certificate. But there are people who fundamentally believe that their gender, their identity, does not conform with their biological sex. It's called gender dysphoria. It's something that's existed for hundreds of years. And America as a country, for many years, these folks didn't have a choice. In most other places, they were oppressed. But we're a country that recognizes people's freedom.
I'm just trying, and this is only because I think this is one of the things that is so screwed up the Democrat Party. So if someone's 20 years old, they were biologically born a male, they're a 20-year-old man now, and they do whatever they do to their body. They can do whatever surgeries they want. They take whatever drugs they want. They dress differently. They change their hair, all of those things. You don't believe, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, do you believe that they've altered their gender?
I believe their gender is a woman. That's what they want to be identified as, and that's their gender is
But do you think they're biologically a woman?
well, their gender is which is what I'm focused on, is what they self-identify as. There's a biological birth, but then there's the gender, and that gender sometimes conflicts with what the biological identity birth was. And in my view, is what we should do is respect people's self-expression of their gender, because it doesn't affect my life. I mean, it doesn't. And in this country, we want people to pursue their happiness. And as you know, we're talking about less than 1% of the population. I guess one of the things I've gotten uh, frustrated with on both sides is, while China is focused on investing in new industry and focused on leading in the world, and on Taiwan, our politics, by your own point, seem caught up in how we're going to treat people who are transgender. Why can't we just agree to give some space and
Well,
respect, and focus on the things that are really going to affect whether America remains a preeminent nation in
well,
this
I
world?
do agree. I do absolutely agree with that. I think the issue really is that it's because so much of this has been taught in schools. I mean, we know there is a social contagion, particularly with young girls. There's a ton of research on this that now we're identifying as boys, but it's because so many of them have been taught this in
But
our
how
in our public
what
schools.
percent is that I mean, of young girls that are now identifying as
Off the
boys?
top of my head, I don't know the exact percentage, but Abigail Shrier wrote an incredible book called Irreversible Damage about just that there's a social contagion element to this, where suddenly, because so many kids are being taught in seventh grade health class that you can change your gender. I'm glad to hear you say that you can't change your biological reality, but that it then leads these kids to all sorts of other confusions and everything else. And then
Look,
we wonder why they're so anxiety ridden.
Look, I think we're talking about a very, very small uh, group of people. My general view is we want to be respecting people and their families to be making these decisions. We don't want the state to be mandating these things, and that we need to. What I'll concede on where my party went overboard is policing exactly the type of language, and criticizing people if they happen to not have the right pronoun in an email sign off. And okay, so we don't have to be judgmental about it. On the other side, there are trans kids who uh, just are struggling to survive, and we're not a cruel nation. Just let's have dignity, respect, and focus on what things can bring us together.
Right. Okay. I don't want to harp on this
Yeah,
too
no,
much
no,
longer, but one more thing on this then. So would you want a biological boy at 15 years old to be wrestling or playing basketball with females,
What I
with
have said,
girls?
and we voted on this in the House, and most Democrats voted against a federal ban on transgender kids playing sports. In a transgender woman playing in women's sports, there was a bill to ban all of that. I think every Democrat had voted against it, but two. And my view is that
Wait, sorry, you were for that or against that?
I am not for a ban on a federal ban on transgender
On a
kids
boy, just to clean up the language so people on a boy
on
being in girls sports.
a seventh grade boy who identifies as a girl playing on a girls soccer team. There was a vote on
Yeah.
that in Congress. All Democrats voted against the federal ban except two. And my view is that is a decision that local school districts, that local communities can make, and not every sport is the same. There can be basic standards. If there is if you actually have a physical advantage in a sport, then that standard can be met, so that there's fairness. If it's just a seventh grader who's doing this, who's not some great athlete and is doing it for a sense of belonging, that's probably fine, right? And so I guess my view is, why not just have the school districts make those decisions? Why do you need a federal ban?
Right. So, okay, I can at least get on board whether it's a federal issue or not. I think that's, do you leave this to the states or whatever? I don't think those, putting aside the skill level, which you're sort of whittling it down to the skill level. I mean, I don't think a boy should be in a girl's locker room, simply put, regardless of their
Well, there's
skill level.
there's one thing about being playing a sport, and then there's the separate issue of how do we make sure that people have a sense of belonging, and then at the same time that that people feel safe and comfortable. In most cases, I mean, maybe this is something in California or most cases where they have transgender kids playing in sports. A lot of times people don't care at the at seventh, eighth, ninth grade. Where it becomes an issue is these really competitive things in college and where people feel like they have a physical advantage. But what I've said, and I did this whole conversation with Megyn Kelly on this, is I understand that there's a concern for safety for girls in their locker room and making sure that they feel safe. I also understand that there's a real genuine concern for belonging and people who are transgender who face a lot of discrimination. It's a difficult issue. Why don't we recognize people are coming at it in good faith and try to let communities figure this out and what makes sense for the school districts and communities?
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop screaming, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.